Which one takes the best portraits in 2026? Xperia, Vivo, Xiaomi, Galaxy, iPhone, Pixel, Huawei, or OnePlus? I tested them all against a full-frame Sony camera using their default photo modes with no filters, so this is as fair as it gets. The first photo is taken at 120mm, which in the smartphone world is around 5x zoom, and this is Maria as a reference shot on the Sony camera. Starting by Xperia, the colors on Xperia are much warmer than what we see on the Sony full-frame camera. Colors aside, the optical quality is amazing. The photo is not overly sharpened, and the bokeh looks natural and strong. The Vivo colors also differ from Sony. This default mode has more magenta in the white balance, and it is a bit softer too, but in a good way. I love how the highlights are managed, and the bokeh is strong. Then we have the Xiaomi 17 Ultra. It also has more magenta in the white balance, similar to Vivo. The photo is soft, the bokeh is strong, and overall it is a bit less vivid with more muted colors. The Galaxy looks rather different, especially when compared to the previous phones. One main reason is that the 5x telephoto lens used here doesn't create a strong bokeh. There is also a bit of a green in the white balance, and Maria is a bit darker. Then we have the iPhone, which despite not creating a strong bokeh, produces amazing colors. Yes, it is a bit more magenta too, and has a bit more of a HDR look, but it is the kind of photo you want to post on social media. After that, we have the Pixel 10 Pro XL with the 5x zoom camera, which honestly misses the mark here. I don't understand Google's overly magenta white balance. In my opinion, it makes the photo looks a bit unnatural. Other than that, the bokeh is on the same level as the Galaxy and iPhone. We now turn to the Huawei Pura 80 Ultra, which is creating a fantastic image. It looks like it came straight out of a real camera. The white balance is also a bit towards magenta, which is a trend we see among many smartphones. It could be because people usually prefer that skin tone over a more yellowish color. This one is my favorite photo so far. The OnePlus 15 here is not necessarily a bad photo, but it does look like it came out of a smartphone, which is expected considering the telephoto lens is not as large as the other Chinese flagship phones. I would have preferred to use the Oppo Find X9 Ultra, but I returned the device because of the well-known camera fogging issue. After 120mm, we move to the more reasonable focal length, my prime 85mm Sony lens. It is my favorite lens for taking portraits. It is roughly 3.5x zoom on a smartphone camera. Starting with the Xperia, this time it is creating rather cold colors. The optical quality is great though, and despite using a telephoto lens, the bokeh looks strong. This photo on the Vivo X300 Ultra looks like it came straight out of a fairy tale. I love the soft colors, the shadows, highlights, midtones, and everything in this photo. The colors and white balance are also picked exactly right. The Xiaomi photo is also really nice. The white balance has a bit more magenta in it. It is not a surprise that due to the large continuous telephoto camera, we get a good amount of bokeh and great optical quality. Moving from Xiaomi to Galaxy is a bit disappointing. The Galaxy is using a 3x telephoto lens, which is not particularly large. You can see that the bokeh is weak, the optical quality is lacking, and even the dynamic range is not that great. And here the iPhone is using the main lens and cropping from it, since there is no option between 24mm and 100mm. The photo is nothing to brag about, but I would say that considering it is a digital crop, it is well balanced and well processed. However, you can see the lack of optical quality easily. You may like the magenta tone on the Pixel, but I am personally not a big fan of it. Other than that, considering it is cropping from the main lens, it is still producing a good photo. The optical quality is there, and the photo is nice and vibrant. Of course, the bokeh you get is limited. And again, Huawei is doing wonders here. It is absolutely stunning. I love the colors, how vivid they are, the sharpness, the highlights, the shadows, the dynamic range, and the great bokeh. The optical quality is right on point, and I low-key prefer it over the Sony. Of course, no one wants to come right after Huawei, but someone has to do it. The OnePlus photo is not bad by any means, but the smaller telephoto lens is very apparent compared to the more premium Chinese flagship phones. That said, I like the softness of the photo and the general vibe. By the way, all of these phones are rather expensive. If you want to save money like me, you can buy the Chinese versions of them from Trading Shenzhen, and I will put the link in the description. If you want to save even more money, you can get some gorgeous Pitaka cases on Amazon while they are on sale. Pitaka is my favorite case, so I'm very excited that they decided to sponsor today's video. I've been using Pitaka cases on my personal Galaxy phones for a long time, and this one has been on my S25 Ultra for around a year and a half. I've dropped this phone countless times, but both the case and the phone are still completely fine. Normally, I'd say Pitaka cases are a bit expensive to recommend to everyone, but right now, during the Amazon Prime sale, they are up to 30% off, which honestly makes this one of the best times to get one. They have cases for both Galaxy S26 and iPhone 17 series, and of course, they work with MagSafe accessories. For example, this Pitaka power bank looks super clean, comes in different patterns, and snaps right onto the case. I also use their phone holder in my car, and I absolutely love the minimalistic design. The cases are lightweight, protective, and they look fantastic without making your phone bulky. Check the links below while the Prime sale discounts are still live. For the third photo, I moved to using the 50mm prime lens on my Sony, which is roughly equivalent to 2x zoom on a phone camera. The Sony photo is not bad by any means, but when it picks such a cold white balance, especially near sunset, it can be a bit of a turnoff. The bokeh is normal considering it is using a typical flagship sensor size. Vivo is hitting the mark better with the white balance. It is leaning towards magenta, but the vividness is there. It is also raising the shadows a bit on Maria. Moving to Xiaomi, its picture, which is unlike authentic, is very contrasty, maybe a tad too much. The colors are very deep, like the deep green and purple on the lavender in the background. I personally like this style, but Maria does not and can be a bit divisive. You do get better bokeh on Xiaomi though, thanks to the 1-inch sensor. The Galaxy S26 Ultra colors are more typical of a phone camera. The bokeh is a bit stronger than on smartphones like the iPhone and Pixel, thanks to the lower aperture. The iPhone picture is not far off, but you can clearly see less background blur if you look at the flowers in the back. The colors are also colder, with more green in the white balance. Maria liked this pixel picture the most out of the photos. I asked her why, and she said she likes that her skin tone has a pink tone to it. So you do not necessarily need to have the most color accurate photo. These things come down to personal preference. When we switch to Huawei, you can see once more that the bokeh is much stronger thanks to the larger sensor. I like the colors a lot, and even though it is also a bit more towards magenta, it is not overly vivid. OnePlus has the weakest main sensor among the flagship phones here, and you can see that the dynamic range and background blur are not as good as the rest of the pack. But overall, for a phone that is more on the budget side, the result looks acceptable. We then move to shooting this video on the 24mm prime Sony lens, which is basically the one-time zoom on phone cameras, except for Vivo, which uses a 35mm main lens. What phone cameras can do better than normal cameras is the HDR effect. Here, you can see the Xperia makes the window blue, while on the Sony it is overexposed. On the other hand, the smallest sensor on a phone cannot compete with a real camera in terms of optical quality. For Vivo's picture, this time it is a bit warmer and more vivid compared to the Sony. I like the HDR effect. Here Vivo is using the ultra-wide camera rather than the main one, which still does a great job due to the large ultra-wide sensor. Here the Xiaomi image is brighter and more contrasty, with a cooler overall white balance. Its HDR processing also lifts the shadows more aggressively. The Sony keeps a softer, more subdued look, with gentler contrast and more restrained colors. The Galaxy image has a brighter, more polished HDR look, with lifted shadows and cooler whites throughout the scene. It also adds a little extra crispness and saturation to the clothing and flowers. The iPhone delivers a stronger contrast and more vivid colors, particularly in the blue sky, pink flowers, and terracotta pot. Its image also looks a touch sharper and more processed with brighter highlights and punchier midtones. The Pixel photo is brighter and has stronger colors, especially in the sky, flowers, and skin. It also brightens the darker parts more, so the whole image looks more lively. Here Huawei is again creating a very nice picture with a strong bokeh. Compared to Sony, the photo is brighter with more color in the sky, flowers, and top. It also makes the white shorts and walls look cleaner and whiter. Similar to Huawei, the OnePlus picture is also brighter and a bit more vivid with a slight orange tint. It does not have a strong bokeh due to the smaller sensor. So now you may ask more, can you just tell me which phone is better for taking portraits? The answer boils down to personal preference, but if I had to pick one, I would say OnePlus, Xperia, and Pixel are not my first choices. OnePlus at number 8 is not really trying to compete here at all. It does not even have a flagship level main camera, but it can still produce well-rounded pictures. For me personally, Pixel is number 7. The magenta tint is just too strong, but I should say Maria liked one Pixel photo a lot for that exact reason. Xperia has great telephoto hardware, but in my experience, photos in auto mode can be a bit hit or miss, especially when it comes to white balance. If you are willing to spend a few seconds adjusting that manually and editing the pictures yourself, it can create stunning shots. Then I would pick the iPhone as number 5. I really like the consistency of the colors on the iPhone, but it is a shame that there is no telephoto option between 24mm and 100mm. It is basically missing all the important portrait focal length, 35mm, 50mm, and 85mm. I would then pick the Galaxy. The new lower apertures are helping a lot in low light, and at least it gives you a 3x zoom, even though the sensor on that camera is small. Number 3 would be the Xiaomi 17 Ultra. I really like the Leica colors, but it is definitely not mainstream. For number 2, I would pick the Vivo X300 Ultra. I'm in love with the colors, how soft they look, and the strong bokeh you get from the telephoto lens. Having a 35mm lens also gives you an opportunity to take better photos at 35mm and 55mm, so all the main portrait focal length are covered. I would pick the Huawei Pura 80 Ultra as the best camera phone of 2026. Most of the time, Huawei give me the best picture or something very close to it. I love the slightly vibrant but still natural colors, the strong bokeh on the main lens and telephoto lens, and the 10x telephoto camera is genuinely useful. The only phone missing here was the Oppo Find X9 Ultra. If you want to see how that phone compares to Xiaomi, Galaxy, and Vivo, you can watch this video next. Thanks for tuning into Techmo, and I will see you in the next one.